Ew. So, um, kind of miscalculated the time. And time sure does fly. It's already the middle of the month, halfway through NaNoWriMo. Unfortunately, I'm only about a third of the way through the story that I want to tell, but I felt I had to redo a significant portion of my document. And when you see it, you'll know what I mean. I've had a few situations like this before where I've had to essentially tear up a whole script and redo it. Thankfully, I had a pretty good editor with me, so it wasn't all too bad. And sometimes you gotta be willing to destroy things in order to let something new take hold. So without further ado, let's check this out. So I basically redid the first page. You can see it kind of like that. So, Ophelia's phone was, in every sense of the word, obliterated, smashed, disassembled, and finally short-circuited in water. The display was smashed into a myriad of shards, all reflecting the terrified look on the young girl's face. Yet despite this, the call was still connected, and the ominous voice continued its crackling cadence. "What's wrong, Ophelia? The choice is yours." So I decided to keep the hook of that imagery of like the phone being broken. I did have to rearrange it a little bit so that this dialogue over here would flow into this part over here. The idea of the choice and the idea of Ophelia thinking about quitting. Yep. So then, now I'm able to go straight into Ophelia's backstory. It's very similar, but I did cut down a few pieces in order to make it more straightforward. It would have been nice to explore her backstory a little bit more, but I felt like it didn't really help with the flow too much. So, earlier that morning, Ophelia was thinking about quitting. Over the summer, she and her friends each started their own YouTube channels to make it easier to share videos of their cats with their other friends and family. But what started as cute cat sneezes quickly went viral, and each girl's channel rapidly grew. Still, there are only so many cat videos a teenager could make before getting bored, so each of them found their own way, whether it was gaming or cooking. It was gaming, cooking, makeup, or just chatting, and they soared to even greater heights. Except for Ophelia. Something just wasn't clicking with her content, and certainly wasn't her subscription button. She tried multiple ways to improve her content. Let me just switch this up, because otherwise that sounds repetitive. She tried multiple ways to improve her videos, ranging from improving her editing skills to engaging with her followers on social media. She showcased her interests, then chased trends. She learned every editing, rigging, and musical program out there. Yet the bar graphs tracking the views of her videos stood like old tombstones, stark and stunted under cold autumn light. Maybe it was her looks. Maybe it was her voice. Or maybe it was simply who she was. Boring. Mediocre. A disappointment. Someone who wasn't even worth a second of someone else's time. Someone who should just... An email notification flashed on her screen, and she lethargically reached over to pick it up. Her inbox used to be full with updates about her channel and collaboration reminders, but lately it was being filled with spam instead. Her thumb moved to delete it, but paused when she recognized its author. Streamersive. That Streamersive. The live streamer agency which suddenly burst onto the scene a year ago, producing not just stars but massive supernovas on social media. Whether it was long-form media, music, or shorts, Streamersive never missed in bringing a new star to the stage. Let me switch this up. There we go. The channels it managed collectively brought in 1 billion views per day, and then showed no signs of stopping. Ophelia read over the email carefully, then set a new reminder on her schedule for that evening. Perhaps, no, this had to be her new start. So I wanted to end off on this because it sort of rhymes with this part over here, starting from, I guess the proper term would be the beginning of an end. So she's thinking about quitting over here, starting anew down here. I'd probably have to do something with this paragraph over here, because while it does capture the sense of awe, I feel it needs to have a few more emotions intertwined, like envy or desire. Like you want to absolutely be a part of this. Probably have to go somewhere here. Anyways, I probably won't have time to edit this right now, so I guess I can talk about how to raise tension. At this point over here, I kind of want Ophelia to start negotiating with the producer, the voice. So let's see what I can type up. Give myself 10 minutes or so. In the dying light of dusk, Ophelia pondered, then typed the number from the email, which would connect her to Streamersive's main audience. Maybe this is just a scam, Ophelia thought to herself. It seemed ridiculous, a major company reaching out to a random person on the internet with barely 1,000 subscribers and less than a year's experience. Oops. Somehow, some way, she caught the eye of a company with 71 million followers each. I kind of like the parallel. caught the eye, like, maybe caught the singular? Yeah, there we go. The singular eye of a company with 71 channels with millions of followers each. So this way, single focus versus, you know, potentially millions of people coming in. Hello, Ophelia, a voice said. It was low and well enunciated, but had an alluring flow like chocolate syrup. I don't know about this one. I was kind of looking for sweet, but also like dark in a way. I guess I must have been hungry when I was writing that. It's also been ages since I had chocolate syrup. Like, you don't want to drink that stuff directly, but it goes great with like lava cake or vanilla ice cream or chocolate swirl. Or like even with baking too. If you want to make like a bread roll or something like that. Good stuff. Just don't add too much or else it completely ruins the flavor. It's gotta have a nice balance to it. Gotta balance it out with something else. Preferably like a different type of sweet, like fructose and strawberries. Man, I miss dessert. Anyways. I need to find a way to fill in this part over here to this part over here. And then I need to go from this idea over here to this idea over here. This story takes a lot of inspiration from another story. I need to find the name of it later, but Tale Foundry mentioned it once. Maybe I can find it. Or story. Backpack name. Of course. I'll have to find that story later. I can't believe I forgot the name of it. Regardless, the story goes, like the original story goes that, a demon asks or how I put it, tempts a girl somehow. I don't know what the demon promised or something like that. But, the demon decides to give the girl a fair chance, or maybe he's bound by some rule. In order to give what she wants, or in order to get what she wants, the girl has to give whatever she has inside her bag. So the girl unpacks her bag, removes pretty much everything essential. What's left are basically a bunch of papers. And how do I put it? But the demon gladly takes the bag and lifts out one of those papers in her bag. And it has the girl's name on it. So basically the demon takes control of that girl's identity. Really smart play though. I kind of like writing stories that, how do I put it, sort of have the same basis, but trying to reimagine it for a modern audience. It's not just about, like, when you do a proper adaptation, it's not just about copying and pasting the plot. You also have to transfer the soul of it over, make it, I guess, appropriate for the time. And you'll see something like that with, what would be a good example? I kind of want to say Sherlock, but actually, I was recently watching Lupin, like, the French series with Omar Sy, and oh my gosh, that series is amazing with how it does its foreshadowing and its relationship to the original books. I haven't read them, but I would like to once my French starts getting better, I guess. But with Lupin's adaptation compared to Sherlock, both of them tell, how do I put it? Both of them borrow elements from the original stories, but they've adapted to the times. For instance, with Sherlock, Watson is still a veteran from Afghanistan, but there's more insight into his trauma, and it's also updated based on the most recent war in Afghanistan rather than the one that happened in the 1800s, yeah. Meanwhile, for Lupin, they basically have a person who is inspired by the original tales and uses a lot of those elements in his own heists, which makes it appear really smart. It's not an exact replication, but there's enough hints that anyone who's read the original books will feel rewarded for figuring it out. And even if you didn't figure out, if you've read enough mystery novels, you can sort of see what Lupin's trying to do before the big unveiling towards the end of the episodes. What else is a good adaptation? I guess even going from, like, our modern era, how manga and books get adapted into movies. When you adapt something from one media to another, you have to take a look at what one media can do, like, really good, or even unique to that media, versus what is done in the original media. So with books, the reader controls the pacing, they control what they're seeing through their imagination, and the book kind of acts as a template or a guide. But when you adapt that to the big screen, you have the opportunity to unify everyone's vision by presenting, like, the same visuals, sounds, and also adjusting the pacing so everyone's literally on the same page on the same second, rather than everyone reading at their own pace. And there's advantages and disadvantages to doing that. For one, visual media is usually it's usually like a direct way of communicating information, and you can layer that information too, such as by adding, like, color or removing that color, by using certain angles that communicate meaning, such as, like, close-ups versus long shots, as well as camera movement. So if you're tracking people walking throughout the world, you can literally move the camera alongside them and just stay on them. And then you toss in more stuff like, the acting as well as the soundtrack. And suddenly you have a unique blend of stuff which could surpass the book in some ways. The drawback to that is that you suddenly have the fans' expectations on you. You don't necessarily... how do you put it? Because everyone's got their own unique version of the book in their head, it can be a lot tougher to live up to those expectations. So you really have to be careful when adapting works like that. Of course, you could always adapt a really obscure work, get something in the public domain, and how do you put it, just make films upon films with that, which is kind of why Sherlock has so many series. Like, there was the BBC adaptation, then there was Elementary, and then there was the Robert Downey series too. Just a whole bunch of ways of doing that. I'm hoping more stuff will come out for Lupin too. Like, we got Lupin the Third, and we have Lupin on Netflix. I'm really excited to see what other ways it'll be adapted. Alright, let me at least get a paragraph in, then I'll turn in. I feel like started. Her voice was like... Okay, there we go. When making a story like this, I believe it was Joseph Campbell who made the hero's journey. And that's normally for, novel or movie formats. And one of the things that he marks down in the beginning of a story is the rejection to a call to adventure. So I'm trying to do a little bit of that over here, where she has a bit of hesitation because she feels she's not worthy. Hi? Ophelia stuttered. Her voice was an out-of-tune saxophone, barely squeezing out her notes. I'm just replying to your email that you sent this morning. Honestly, I feel like I'm wasting your time. You're probably way too busy managing your dozens of other channels. Dozens of... There we go. What do you need mine for, right? Let's see. Don't. Let's see. When you're writing dialogue, there's subtle things that you can do in order to, I guess, give a hint about the character. For one, well, with English, there's multiple ways of doing so. If you're writing more casual, you'd probably use more contractions. But if you're writing more formally, you want to use very, how do I put it, like active voice combined with no contractions. So I've been expecting you. Oh. Do not worry about that. Yours is the first channel I have my business is business is not about creating your ability, your career, and like the others in my custody, your voice and visage shall reach the billions present, the present, and the trillions in the future. The others in my custody had a similar origin. In dealing with me, I help their voice. Now their visages shall reach the billions in the present and the trillions in the future. Da, da, da. you desire? Let's see. So something about Greek myths is that each of their heroes normally has some form of hubris, or like a fatal flaw. Oh, wait, no, wait. The proper term would be hamartia, and hubris would be the sin of pride, basically. Hamartia is generally the fatal flaw. So, Ophelia's here should probably be jealousy. Jealous of her friends getting ahead of her, and also fear of being left out, about not being wanted, which is a really major thing to overcome. It's not always that easy to, how do you put it? I mean, for one, it takes a bit of mindfulness, like realizing that though you might not be important to everyone, you're probably important to someone out there. Whether it's family, whether it's a friend, or whether it's going to be people in the future. But I think that we can explore it over here. I guess when you're on the internet so often, your sense of belonging can kind of get warped. Because if you feel that the internet is rejecting you, it can feel like the world is rejecting you, that no one out there in the millions upon millions is there to see you. But, you know, hi to the CIA officer watching this stream. Hope you're entertained. There's always someone watching. Let's see. Like a down, like flood waters breaking through a dam. Pretty sure there should be a better title over here. Typically the producer's role is to network and secure funding and stuff. So maybe director would be a better option. Or CO? No, let's go with director. need to finish off that description later. I want to be what would be a good one? Loved by the world. Okay, that can be arranged. I have to be careful about how many cliches I use in this, otherwise it kind of loses its touch. Let's see. That said, even such miracles are not without a cost. Da-da. Okay, now I've been able to connect this part with this part over here, which is pretty good. 1, 2. Introducing what Ophelia wants, getting to the terms of the deal, and then now I can get to the real meat and bones of this, which should be... I bet this is where the plots diverge compared to the original. Like, really diverge. So I'll try this out. I'll try working a bit on this off stream as well, and hopefully I can get this completed by the next writing stream that I have. Oh, I think that's about it. It feels good to have a bit of time for this sort of creative activity. I was always too busy to write stories in university. It's a miracle how I managed to push through like 1 or 2 a year, for that matter. But from restrictions comes creativity. From this short format, I'm able to focus more on layering my details, such as foreshadowing, being peculiar about the dialogue, and being very concise with my descriptions. So it's not a lot, but it's very dense. So hopefully this works out. I'm really enjoying it. It was a little bit rough having to rewrite that first page, but I think it has a proper flow now. The next thing I'll probably have to do is to rearrange the dialogue, try to minimize it a little bit, because a story should be more about showing and not telling. When you show something, how you put it, you give the audience a bit of credibility. You allow them to make their own hypotheses and come to their own conclusions. And then whether that's rewarded or not really depends on how well they've thought things through, as well as like your responsibility as an author to create like... But it may not necessarily be predictable, but what matters isn't the ending, but like the journey to get there. So going from this point forward, the main conflict arises. Ophelia has to basically take apart her phone, which leads us back to the beginning over here. And in doing so, she basically tears herself apart. So this will be fun. Yeah. Well, have a good night.